Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. So hello everyone, once again, welcome to Satsang. So today let's talk about time and the wisdom to use time. You see, time is one of the most precious things, maybe the most valuable commodity. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how intelligent you are, how knowledgeable. Knowing how to use time goes far beyond that. Because, first of all, you need to understand that there's only one game being played, and that is freedom game. And in this game, what opposes this is illusion. So one of the biggest weapons of illusion is distraction. Because you need time, the more time possible, to use into your liberation, into transcendence. So it is this time, well used, that will bring the fruits, the real fruits. And why is it the real fruits? Because liberation is the only game being played. So whatever is there else falls into the category of distraction. So those who are in the spiritual path, they have listened. For some it makes sense that there's something called reincarnation. So that means that you come from other planes and you arrive at this one, you incarnate, take a body, take a life, and then the body dies and you go back to somewhere else, to another plane, and then you come back again and you go up and down, whatever that means. So whenever you take birth in a physical body, you start a life of that body. And with that comes everything which is there, the story. The ingredients of the story are the needs that arise either from the physical body, either from the emotional level or the mental circumstances. Everything gives the needs that make up the story. So in all these stories, you will have the majority of the ingredients, maybe not all, but the majority. Survival needs, safety needs, diverse ones, happiness needs. Everything falls into the category of happiness, of course, but people tend to separate. And, well, sometimes you build houses or you don't, you find shelter or you don't, you get a family or you don't, but many of the same needs are recurrent into a life of a human being. So for someone who has come to be aware of its own existence, being aware of the purpose of transcendence, surely he must have done this many, many times. So, and I hear quite often seekers saying, oh, but I've done many lives as a monk or something like that, and now I have to fulfill this life as a household. And well, usually they don't know what they're talking about, first of all. Second, if they've made that life as a monk's life, well, that wasn't a very successful one, was it? So that you have to become a household. Because a monk's life presupposes a state of a commitment of renunciation, and it's like a pre-transcendence situation. What does this mean? It means that certain vows are made, vows that protect you from entering the waters of delusion so intensely, vows that protect you from diving to these currents of distraction, and to help you, they don't guarantee anything, but to help you to focus on that which is important, which is transcendence. So after going through this, then you go back to household. Well, something went wrong. Of course, there's always exceptions, whatever that means. But the main thing is, these theories come without anything to back it up, usually. And effectively, what this usually means is a spiritual excuse to indulge in the same habits. And why is this needed? Well, because the level of knowledge has gone up, but the level of dependencies didn't budge. This is quite common in this informational age, where all the knowledge is available. And if you are more intellectually prone, more intellectually able, you may dissect these knowledges and they will make sense to you. But that doesn't mean that it will make sense as a whole. That doesn't mean that this will evolve yourself in a wholesome way. It means it makes sense intellectually. It means you can believe it. But that doesn't mean the rest of what appears to be you at that moment will reach the same level. Usually it doesn't. So then, to avoid handling these how do you say this in English? These things that don't make sense. Like, well, I already know this, but I cannot do it. So to face this situation, a certain level of maturity has to be there. But usually it's more easy to get excuses so that you continue the same investments in a protected way. And they don't exhaust themselves, because if you understand this, that there are some levels in you that are immature, not able to grasp what you already know. Okay, that investment could last a little bit longer, but eventually you would overcome it because you know. So it's a matter of time for things to reach that level. But if you change what you know and you adapt it to the reality which is present, there is no growth. You remain at that level. It's easy equation. And for those who may be wondering or having these ideas, there's no such thing as you have to, and you have to, and you have to. It's not what's about. I'm not saying that everybody has to become a monk. Well, I'm saying that a seeker of truth will have to live that kind of life, even if it is just as an inner attitude. That is a must. You cannot go around that. But even so, there's no have-tos, because there's a simple thing which is very important. It's your interest. The divine is not after you demanding it that you transcend or whatever. And the fruits you'll plant is the fruits that you'll reap. But understand, there's only one game being played, and that's the liberation game. And that which opposes the game of liberation, which has to do a lot with focus, reasoning, appliance of that reasoning to improve your efforts continuously. So what opposes that is distraction. Is to distract you with infinite situations, infinite directions, to oppose just one direction. Infinite ones. And those distractions, they come from the levels of that which you're not, but which wants to maintain dominance existence, and that is the body-mind complex. So whatever impressions are arising in your physical body, from the physical realm, they are there to keep you entertained. What is arising at the emotional level or in the mind is of the same nature. The mind can be used, can be made a very good tool, but it's a tool. It's like a cop, a police officer. So the police officer is trained to catch thieves. But in this situation, the police officer is the thief and is the one who is making the investigations impossible to reach the conclusion that he is the thief. So when he is when he is clear, when the seeker is clear of how the mind works, what's his purpose, it's not there to guide to liberation, it's there to keep you distracted. In the example of the cop, so this cop knows that he cannot trust himself. He knows that he is the thief and he is not allowing the investigations to continue. So once this is clear and he knows this has to stop, this has to end, he will make sure he's going to get caught. So by observing itself, his own behaviors, he can create situations that don't allow those behaviors to unfold, to work. And many of these strategies are created by seekers of truth to stop these automatic mechanisms to have a chance to continue. And this is reducing the level of distraction. And it is a continuous work. Because you may think that you have a lot of things, you have a mission in here or this and that, but that's all distraction. Because there's nothing more frightening to the structures of illusion than the fire of a real seeker of truth. The one who is distance from these structures, just abiding in that silence, it creates such a powerful flame that endangers all illusion. And this is why there's so much of a big resistance, because it's not a friendly game. It's not a friendly game. It's a hard game. And the opposition is hard. If you're not feeling this hard opposition, that's probably because you're not doing anything that really is questioning that which is pre-established. Because when you do, opposition becomes very hard. And hard, it may have two ways. Usually there's two ways of being hard. The hard way and the soft way, the stealth way. And even in these hard ways, it can be in two different kinds. It can be by intensely seducing you or intensely threatening you, menacing, haunting your mental stability. There's many ways of doing this. In the soft way, the same. So it can be through blackmail or something like that. It can be in many ways. I'm not sure if I did the examples correctly, whatever. So, but the bottom line is, it's not a friendly game, it's a warlike game. But it's coverted until you become serious enough, then there's no way to hide it. And the more it is visible, the better it is for you to learn about these structures, because in the beginning they are overwhelming. But as you get familiar with them by experiencing them, then you will gain that sense of detachment from them, and they start to not being able to touch you in significant ways. And the more you remain in your stillness, the more this threatens, and illusion gets crazy. It loses what it appeared to have, which it didn't, but what it appeared to have, that is a sense of logic, continuity, a sense of what is called normal laws, normal happenings. And the more it loses this, the more visible it becomes, and so on, so on. If you can handle the pressure, you'll be seeing more and more, and this will enable you to create more and more distance. The majority of you are happily distracted. There are some that are going through difficult times, others which are not, but the majority happily distracted or sadly distracted, but unaware. Because they don't understand. Because you see your life and transcendence as something that goes together. And they don't. What you call your life is the life of that body. And the path where the body goes, its intention is distraction or concentration. By concentration, you get out from this straight line over the horizon journey. And as the body continues this journey, because it is the body's journey like this, in a, or let's call it horizontal fashion, just for the graphics. And the secret of truth, as the body continues in this direction, because it is its own, he will start moving upwards in vibration, tuning with silence, with his own presence, intensely meditating to abstract from the rest, to remove the bondages. By resisting the inner urges that he calls his own, at least in the beginning, to dive into delusion, to invest into delusion, and to be able to differentiate what's useful, what's needed from distraction. It takes a great deal of focus, of silence, of reflection, and of course of guidance if that is possible. But that's a different level when there's guidance. And if you fail to understand that liberation is the only thing, that's what time is for. It's like you enter a game of paintball and you take up your chessboard and you call someone else and you start playing chess there as everybody is shooting one another's. Eventually you'll get shot and die. If you didn't understand that was a paintball match and you were distracted playing chess, you will not be able to use your time in a constructive way. So those who don't have the calling for liberation, they are in the right place, living the life of distraction, and that's how they mature. Through the difficulties of life and the lack of the capability of real self-observation. And this is tricky because everybody thinks, especially those who are in spirituality, that they have this capacity to observe themselves. But if they cannot rise to what they know, this is not there. So those who are in these structures, without this calling for transcendence, they are in the right place, they are maturing. And like an example I've used recently, this maturity comes more or less like a fossil comes into existence. It takes a very, very long time to make a fossil, at least from where I understand it. I have not studied it, so probably I'm mistaken about it, but that's the idea that I want to pass, is that it is a long process of this learning that brings maturity, not really understanding, because your understanding depends on your maturity. An understanding is not just about processing the actual information, it's about it blossoming at all levels in you. So that's understanding. It's not just the capacity to pick up a concept. It's by far different than that. So that evolution, that preparing process takes a very long time. But those who are there, without knowing about transcendence, without having that calling, they're in the right place. And there are no problems there. There are just ways of living. There must be a way, so everybody develops one. There's no right and wrong, because it's not about circumstances, it's about maturing, and that is happening. Circumstances change from age to age. That means different characteristics to get to the same maturity. And it's just interaction. So you see what you call a social problem. This has, of course, there are things that people can agree upon, and there are many others that they cannot. For some it is not a problem, for others it is, but eventually it isn't. And those who are there trying to solve those problems, they are not a part of the solution, they are part of the problem. And that's just their way of interacting, their way of living. So eventually it's all noise for distraction. Million paths open up in front of you, calling you for you to use your time there. Because time is the ultimate commodity, the most valuable one. Because it's time you need to make the best use to walk the path of liberation. Of course, it may be fast, but it may take a long while. So, using intelligence, the more time you have available, the better. And the more you know, the more responsibility you have. And if you're not using that time, you're saying that liberation is not that important. So this is the message you're sending. So why guidance would come? Why would there be something else happening? Why should your process become alive if time is not being used? There would be no reason. So apart from liberation, there is nothing else. So whatever is there, which is important to you, very important, those things that you can cross, but with a lot of difficulty, and those things that you cannot even question to go beyond. And you may think that these things are universal, but they're not. And they are just revealing to you what your obstacles are, what is there still distracting you, what is there owing you. And what you need to overcome somehow. Because the game is still the same, and you can spend your life giving excuses and investing your time. Eventually you will have the ultimate feedback. So if you still don't know who you are, if self-realization is not there, because this can be misinterpreted, you don't know who you are, because one of the most famous sentences repeated by anyone these days is, "Oh, I know who I am." But if self-realization is not there, then it means you have to apply all your time into that direction. And if you are doing that, there are some things that are not being understood and you need to improve. And using your day as it was the last in terms of focus, attention. Because you never know, it may be the last. And time is the most precious thing. Taking time for granted, that's being naive. So, independently of your attachments, be aware of them, see them for what they are. This is the shortest path to transcend those dependencies, those limitations. Because even by knowing this, starts to crumble these dependencies. And this is why people get into denial. It's a protection mechanism towards that. Because when you know something is not right and you are maintaining it, this is bringing fruits. But sometimes you know that things are not right. But instead of looking at them that way, whilst you're doing it, but working hard to cut this dependency, eventually this will bring fruit. That means that this mental level has been solved, you know, and eventually this will mature at other levels, from the conscious one to all the instinct levels. And eventually you will overcome dependency. But if you masquerade it and turn it into something, that's what people like to do, like something which is on the purpose of self-realization. It is meant to be, it is whatever. Then this maturity doesn't come, and that dependency just worsens. This is why I usually say, this world nor the beyond, the worlds beyond. This is the base. And then with this, remembering this as a mantra, looking at your own life and your own investments. And like this, you can have discrimination, which is a very important faculty for the spiritual seeker. Because without discrimination, you won't be able to know what's a good investment, what's a bad investment. And it's not that he will have doubts. He may have them, or he may not. His decisions will be wrong because of the assumptions, because of the values inherent in there still. He won't be able to go beyond that. Transcendence, distraction. Either you're walking the path of transcendence, that means also abstracting yourself from worldly investments, from the investments from the body-mind, from selfish interest, motivated, driven interests. And this can be very subtle. This can be very subtle because it's easy to see when someone is doing a work to get money or to get position, power, assets. It's easy. It's more difficult when, oh, I'm doing the good and helping and this and that. It's more difficult because you may doing that. Or you may be looking for something else, a purpose for the individual character, respect from the community that you're inserted in, self-importance. There are many things, and this will be there, but it takes a certain level of honesty to be able to identify this. And without identifying, you are not able to come out of it. So obstacles will be there for sure, for everybody. But what makes a difference is having the calling for liberation first and understanding that there is only walking towards liberation or getting distracted. That everything which is coming from this physical world and other worlds that expresses itself apparently in outer circumstances and inner circumstances, in related to the body-mind, of course. This is for the sake of distraction. And whatever your senses, your mind finds natural, usually it's going against your quest for liberation. This is why guidance is a must and needs to be sought. And the way to do it is to become a real seeker of truth. intense spiritual practice, using your time for spiritual practices and doing it intensely, eventually, if it is sincere, guidance will come. Okay. And also another aspect, which is important, but maybe it will bring confusion. Yeah, probably will. So let's forget about it. Okay. So understand that the only, and this is for those who make sense. Those who doesn't make sense, they belong to the soup, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. The only thing here to be done is liberation. Either you're walking the path of liberation or you're distracted and wasting your precious time. Nothing else. Your arguments to refute this, they are just an expression of your obstacles and your difficulties, and that which you still give value. It doesn't matter if it's something that only you give value or the majority that are around you give value. Refutable or irrefutable, it doesn't matter. It is holding you. That's what you need to know. And the more you can overcome this, because your obstacles also, they are part of the journey of liberation, taken in the right way. Okay. So this satsang was broadcast only in Instagram, and probably Saturday will be the same, and only the next week will become normal. So next satsang will be Saturday, 9:30 in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time.